My name is Brugard. I'm the CEO of Wolfram Math Core, and we develop SystemModeler as well as provide consulting solutions related to mainly SystemModeler, but also other Wolfram technologies. And today I'm going to talk about new stuff in SystemModeler and related related projects. And I think before actually starting the presentation, I want to show a short part of the video. A few weeks ago, a colleague of mine had seen this video about the tennis racket effect. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's sort of explained in this video.
2017, and after rescuing the space station, Janabekov unpacked supplies sent up from Earth, which were locked down with a wing nut. And as the wing nut spun off the bolt, he noticed something strange. The wing nut maintained its orientation for a short time, and then it flipped 180 degrees. And as he kept watching, it flipped back a few seconds later, and it continued flipping back and forth at regular intervals. This motion wasn't caused by forces or torques applied to the wing nut. There were none, and yet it kept flipping. It was a strange and counterintuitive phenomenon, one that the Russians kept secret for 10 years.
Okay, you might ask yourself what that has to do with SystemModeler. I will get back to that later on. But in general, I would say that what it has to do with SystemModeler, that modeling is a lot about trying to investigate things that are sort of hard to understand sometimes and getting new insights. So, but I'll get back to that. For bandwidth reasons, I think I will shut down my video for now and perhaps get it back on later. Okay. So first of all, in March this year, together with the release of Mathematica 12.1, we also released SystemModeler 12.1. And one thing that happened there that is perhaps not super important, but that you might have noticed, is that we used to type SystemModeler this way, but instead we started to add a dash. So we're not camel casing at the moment or any longer. Instead we have two separate words. And at the moment you will see different versions of it, but gradually it will be switching to the SystemModeler 12.1. In 12.1, the key features were the new synchronous library that I hope some of you have been had an opportunity to use. It was improved error reporting that sort of included when you get the error message for some coding, some coding mistake, you actually get links that takes you to the right line of code and so on. And simplified creation of configurable models. So models where you can easily have different configurations with, for instance, changing a specific component according to a ready-made list. Even though this was released this year, I will not cover that today, really. I covered most of those topics in last year's conference, so I can recommend you to listen into that one if you want to hear that. But also, of course, going to the website where we are covering the things, which you can see basically it will look like this, where you have the different pods and you can click to different resources in order to see whether it's videos or examples that illustrates these different features that we added. Okay, instead, I would like to go to something that is more of sort of SystemModeler related projects. It's not the product itself, but things that make the use of the product easier. A couple of, like a month ago or something like that, 3 weeks ago, perhaps, we started study groups in system modeling. So you might have heard about this concept of study groups that Wolfram has added during the year. If you saw Stephen's keynote, he mentioned these. And in the system modeling study group, there was 8 different sections, one each day of the course. All of them you can see roughly an hour. These were interactive, of course, live, just as sort of at the moment, but you can still go and see these online and to learn more how to use SystemModeler. So here you go to the site and you can see different courses that are available, and we should here is we have the system modeling section. So then you can go in, and if you want to learn sort of the basics of SystemModeler, you can click to this one and follow that one. If you want to learn more about how to use it in chemistry, you can click on this one and so on. And the first parts are sort of something you can basically just listen into, get an idea of how to use the product, while the later ones are more interactive and where you are expected to install this, have the software installed and so on, so you get exercises to follow along. And I guess we will rerun this also if you want to have a more interactive version where you can actually have some questions and answers. Another one of these things that I won't cover too much because we have a specific talk on that is the virtual labs, which we have started to release. These are specifically targeted towards education in high school and college, but I'll get back to that. Then a happy surprise of good timing was that last week a new book on SystemModeler was released. It's written by professor from St. Petersburg in Russia and from Malaysia. So you can buy this book at Springer. If I click here, get to that link, I can post the links for you later on. And you, by the way, you can also download this presentation on the conference site, and there you have the links and so on. Okay, so here you can see it, and already now it's 835 downloads I can see of the book, so that's good. But there's also, of course, a physical copy of it that you can buy. And we hope that this will help yourself as well as colleagues to get started in with SystemModeler. Okay, SystemModeler 12.2 is getting released. Just as for Mathematica, the code freeze for functions, new functionality was a few days ago. So right now it's in the middle of sort of stabilizing the product and getting things to run smoothly. So it's a perfect timing to have live demos, of course. In general, I would say that 12.2 is a lot about getting better workflows and making it easier to develop your models and document your models in a sense. And I have selected 3, as well as sort of keeping the progression of being able to model more and more things, of course. I have chosen 3 things to focus on here today. It's annotational plots. It's that we are finally, and this has been asked for a lot, adding the fluid library, an experimental version of it, and then we have something that says create system models from regions. And I think I will take these in a slightly different order than I here. Let's start with the regions. And that will take us back to the tennis racket effect. So something we made possible now, I will start here with importing Cad Shape. So it's a wing nut. Remember that there was a wing nut in the example we saw. So what I will do, I have downloaded a wing nut from a resource of free CAD drawings. And then I will import this as a boundary mesh region. So now I have my wing nut here in Mathematica. And of course, it's just a Cad shape and doesn't really do much in itself, other than perhaps looking good, I guess. But what I can do now is actually I can take this shape or any or other regions I can create within Mathematica. I could use the Mathematica primitives, of course, to create a graphics also, or a region. Once I have the region, what I can do is I can create a system model from this. So look here, what I'm doing here, I'm creating a system model called Wingnut within the package new in SystemModeler. And I'm using this Wingnut component that I created here. So this Wingnut here is what I'm using to create the model. Then I'm scaling it, because whoever drew this Wingnut made the biggest wingnut ever. It's about, if I remember correctly, like 25 meters in diameter. So it's a rather big wingnut. So I'm making it slightly smaller, still huge, but smaller. So that's why we have this option here. Otherwise, we could skip the parameter values if the wingnut was sort of more realistic size. So then with this, what happened here is if I go over to SystemModeler, I should be able to see it here now, wingnut here, and you see it's updated in bold. It's because we added that as a model. And this actually doesn't only add sort of the graphics, it adds a bit more, and we'll get back to that. Next thing I'll do is I'll use this newly created component and create an example with it. So using Connect System Model components, I'll take this wingnut and the world object. For those of you that are familiar with the 3D multibody library of SystemModeler, you sort of know what this is. For others, this is basically a component that defines things like gravity and coordinate system and so on, so you know where in the world you are and how sort of it's working. And we can see what I do here is I'll define the gravity to 0, because up in space where this example we saw is going on, there's basically no gravity, so let's set it to 0. And then I'll also initiate the wingnut with the initial velocity, so we will sort of be traveling at this velocity here, 0.1 meters per second, and it will be rotating around the same axis with 10 radians per second. So I do Shift Enter, and now I have created a model using this. So I can look at that, called Jashin-Benkov effect. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's the cosmonaut that sort of saw this happening in space. And this is the simple model we have. Nice, okay. So now, without having to do anything more, we actually have set up a complete system that we can simulate and see how it works. So I run SystemModeler with the animation option here to open the animation window. This simulates a model first and then opens the animation. Well, and before simulating it, as those that has used SystemModeler knows, what it does is sort of compile and so on. So let me do this. Okay, now my Windows bar came up here. Can I? Yeah. Now let's put it on repeat and let's go and see what happens. So I'm starting. There is flips. So just based on the shape and calculating, so automatically we're now calculating the moments of inertia and so on needed in order to simulate this. And just by starting it on a constant speed and a constant rotation, we can see exactly the thing that happened in the video. It's happening here too. I don't know about you guys, but I have been looking at this many times, and it's sort of, it's hard to understand. Once you start looking at exactly how sort of the wing nut starts to flip a bit, you can start to understand why it actually flips. But the most amazing thing is how it actually comes back into balance. And these are the kind of things that you sort of want to simulate and start to analyze in order to understand what's going on. Okay. So next thing I want to show there is, let's close this down, is the fluid library. I'm going in reverse here. And I will run a drum boiler example. Drum boilers are typically used in when you are like in power plants, for instance. So you from using a drum here, or the actual drum boiler, you have liquid and water in two phases, liquid and vapor. So liquid is coming in here, and then vapor is leaving, and that is the vapor you're sort of using later on for producing electricity. But anyways, what the fluid library enables is these options in order to sort of go from one phase to another, using the media library that we had before. It has a whole bunch of components for these purposes. So we can basically, what we have to do, as is an experimental version, is you have, and I've already done that, but you have to sort of right click on Modelica version, and then you choose the with the fluid library experimental, which I've done here. And then what you will get is here, fluid library. And you can see that it has different things like valves, sources, and so on. Okay. And here we have an example that I have, the example I talked about. We have the diagram here. And let's just simulate that to see that it actually works. And it will not be, of course, in the actual how a drum boiler works. But if you're interested in that, you can, of course, download the model later and try to understand a bit. Okay, so this I have some bug here in the functionality that scales a bit bad here. I have now predefined model plot, and what you can see now on my screen, there's a bug that makes these sort of titles a bit big. But this is things that are interesting, that we're added possible to sort of put titles more easily, but also captions. And these captions can be actually a bit more interactive. So let's see, or updated more easily. So if I go in here, this plot properties, this comes now to annotating your figure. So let's say here that you would like to add some kind of reference to a variable that is in the model. So you would say variable. Always I have to learn to spell the variable, and then you can link to a variable here. So you can find any variable here. I start to type something, for instance, P. Let's see here. Okay, sorry. Subplot variable here, link target variable name. First time I used this was a few years ago. Let's say I use that. And I can give it some text like pressure. I can also add perhaps a final value, for instance, and I can get that here. So again, so yes, we'll get the final value. And I can reference between plots and so on. Okay, and now we can see the variable pressure has the final value 89 bars. And getting soon running out of time. I think that's good timing. And we can see here now that I can also go to find it in Model Center. So I click PS, it selects it here, it selects it here. So that way you can easily sort of find the things that you are linking to. Nice. So these are 3 of the things I wanted to showcase for SystemModeler 12.2. Basically making it easier to document your models by annotations, the new experimental fluid library, and system modeling from regions. So I think it's pretty cool. Before leaving for a short Q&A, I just wanted to mention that there are coming up directly after this one. There's a presentation where Anket Naik will explain how Professor Matteo Fasano from Italy could increase his student capacity from 30 to 300 in an instant. And that was sort of something that happened when the lockdown for COVID-19 came in Italy, and he thought he would have no possibility of doing his classes in the way he wanted. Instead of sort of shutting them down, he could scale it up to 300. And Ankit will cover that. Then after that, Leonardo Laguna will show you how SystemModeler sounds, and I bet you it sounds really good. And after Leonardo, Guido Wolfram, consultant, business consultant, will show a new business simulation library that is coming up with SystemModeler 12.2 or just after 12.2, and how this sort of takes system dynamics to a new level. Something that is not necessarily SystemModeler related, but as I'm sort of organizing this together with Jeremy Davis, I like to invite you guys to come to France tomorrow and visit that with us. So if you look at the agenda, you will find a virtual gym hour, and there you can read a bit more about if you want to sort of the chances of visiting France tomorrow, or strolling around your neighborhood to find different things. Finally, on Friday, I did some COVID-19 modeling early this year, and I'm sort of trying to give the verdict of that simulation that I did in April. Was I even close, or did I fail completely? Okay, Q&A. I will have a short Q&A here, but I would like to invite you for more questions later on, as we have a bunch of presentations today. We have decided that our booth session at noon today will have an extended Q&A from today's SystemModeler presentation. So if you go drop in there, and you are welcome with questions for this presentation as well as other presentations today. And of course, if you have other questions, then you're welcome with those too. Then on Thursday, we sort of focus on consulting services. So if you have questions regarding consulting, you're welcome there. Yet again, if you have other questions, you're also welcome, but we try sort of, so if several people have the same sort of interest, it might be a good opportunity to join in. And finally, on Friday, tell us which features you want in next version of SystemModeler. So with that, I'll just click on this one. So you see where that sort of, that was, yeah, let's see. Yeah, so here you see the booth and the guys that will be present there. It's myself, Leonardo Laguna Ruiz, Jorge Lovaco, and Anket Naik. Good. That was my presentation. I will see if I can find some, if you have any questions. I will stay here for just 1 minute or so, and then we'll, after that, we'll leave. I'll leave for Anket's presentation that is starting in a few seconds. So let's see if I find the right window here with the that was not okay. For some reason I'm not finding the right chat here. Got lost, but thank you very much, and take care.